In the 1970s, Black fathers found a way to turn everyday skills into real money, side hustles that did not just pay the bills, they built futures. Factory wages alone could not keep up with double-digit inflation or redlining, so these men stacked after-hours repairs, cash lawn routes, and word-of-mouth services, teaching their sons that self-reliance was the only guarantee. How did dozens of overlooked side hustles turn into a multi-generational blueprint for wealth? And which of these moneymakers turned driveways, porches, and backyards into survival zones? Let us pull back the curtain on a playbook few outsiders ever got to see. Driveways and backyards became the real workshops of the 1970s. The backyard mechanic was a mainstay in Black neighborhoods, where fathers lined up cars every Saturday morning, tackling repairs that dealerships priced out of reach. A brake job might bring in $20, a full tune-up $50, and a man who could swap out an engine could pocket a weekend's worth of factory wages in just a few hours. Word spread fast. Neighbors called before sunrise, hoping to secure a spot in the queue. Sons learned the trade by handing over wrenches, watching their fathers diagnose a knocking sound or trace a bad starter. The tools were basic: jack stands, ratchets, a stack of greasy manuals. But the knowledge was gold, passed down without ceremony. Painting crews built their own reputations, rolling out on weekends with ladders strapped to borrowed trucks. A single exterior job could pay $100, sometimes $500, depending on the size and the finish. Fathers recruited sons, cousins, or trusted friends, splitting the labor and the profits. Brushes and rollers were reused until the handles splintered, and every paint-stained shirt told a story of houses transformed room by room. Customers came from church, work, or neighborhood referrals. Each satisfied client meant two more jobs waiting down the block. Some crews grew so steady that painting overtook the day job, turning side work into a full-time business. Carpentry and handyman gigs filled every gap in the neighborhood. A porch in need of repair, a fence to mend, cabinets to hang. Each job paid anywhere from $20 to $100, cash in hand. Fathers with a set of saws and a steady hammer became the first call when something broke. The work was endless from sunup to sundown, and sons learned to measure twice, cut once, and charge what the market could bear. Every tool was an investment, each new project a lesson in self-sufficiency. Appliance repair kept the homes running and the money flowing. Washing machines, refrigerators, and stoves broke down often, but a father who could fix them was always in demand. Service calls ran $20 to $30, plus the cost of parts, less than half what a big repair shop charged. The skill took patience and practice, often learned from manuals or by trial and error. Word of mouth did the advertising, and satisfied customers spread the news after every working spin cycle or humming freezer. Sons watched closely, learning how to diagnose a faulty switch or replace a belt, absorbing the value of knowledge that could not be repossessed. Each of these trades was more than a way to make ends meet. They were blueprints for independence. The tools might have been old, the jobs unpredictable, but the pride ran deep. Fathers built more than cash flow. They built confidence, teaching the next generation that every skill had value and every hour could be turned into opportunity. Grass grew fast in the 70s, and so did opportunity for fathers who didn't mind the heat. Early Saturday mornings, mowers rattled into pickup trucks, and men mapped out their lawn care routes. 15, sometimes 20 yards lined up across wealthier neighborhoods on the other side of town. Each cut brought in $12 to $18. Cash tucked into shirt pockets before moving to the next address. Regulars expected hedges trimmed, leaves cleared, and by winter, those same fathers swapped mowers for snow shovels, keeping income steady as the seasons changed. Sons followed along, learning the rhythm of hard work and the subtle art of pricing by the square foot or by the job. Hauling was a different kind of grind, dirty, heavy, but always in demand. One sturdy pickup could turn into a business overnight. Furniture deliveries, moving help, and junk removal paid $25 to $55 a load. Word spread through church bulletins and neighborhood phone trees. If you needed a couch moved or a basement cleared, you called the man with the truck. Some weekends filled up with back-to-back jobs, the cab thick with dust, the bed stacked with everything from old mattresses to broken appliances. The work was physical, but the payoff was clear. 3 or 4 hauls in a weekend could bring in $100 or more, enough to cover bills or tuck away for emergencies. When the leaves fell and the nights turned cold, fathers with access to timber found another market: firewood. Chainsaws buzzed in vacant lots and wooded edges, cutting cords that sold for $28 to $48 each. Orders picked up as soon as the temperature dropped, with families stocking up for wood stoves and fireplaces. Deliveries meant heavy lifting, but the profits were nearly pure, just sweat, sawdust, and the cost of gas for the chainsaw. The firewood hustle peaked in autumn, but a steady customer list kept orders coming well into winter, bridging the gap until lawns needed mowing again. Every one of these outdoor hustles demanded stamina, long hours, aching backs, and relentless schedules built around factory shifts or office jobs. Fathers mapped the seasons, pivoted from grass to snow to wood, and made sure no tool sat idle. The money was real, the work was honest, and the lesson was simple. There is always demand for someone willing to show up, get dirty, and finish the job. These were the hours that built college funds, paid off mortgages, and taught the next generation that hustle is not just about money, it is about resilience. A kitchen chair, a pair of clippers, and a steady hand. These were the tools of the weekend barber. Fathers turned porches and kitchens into makeshift shops every Saturday, charging $2 or $3 a cut. The line started early, stretching out the door as men and boys waited their turn. Each customer brought more than hair to trim. They brought news, jokes, and trust built over years. A good barber remembered every cowlick and every story, and regulars rarely missed a week. 10 heads in a morning meant $20 or $30. Cash slipped into an apron pocket before noon. Some fathers passed the skill down, teaching sons to blend fades and keep the clippers sharp, ensuring the trade and the income stayed in the family. In homes where the scent of fried fish or barbecue drifted from the kitchen, plate sales turned family recipes into steady profit. Mothers and fathers cooked up soul food dinners, catfish, ribs, collard greens, selling plates for $5 to $10 each. Orders rolled in from church bulletins and factory lunchrooms, with customers reserving the plates days in advance. A weekend run of 30 plates could bring in $200 or $300, all from a home stove. The money covered groceries, school shoes, or a new coat come winter. Every meal served was more than food. It was a piece of family savings, built one plate at a time. Shine kits appeared outside factories, bus stops, and church steps where fathers polished shoes for 50 cents to $2 a pair. A good shine took 5 minutes, but the real payoff came from regulars who returned every week. Some expanded into repairs, replacing laces, patching soles, making worn-out shoes last another season. A busy Saturday could bring in $20 to $50, all in small bills and coins. The cost to start was low: polish, brushes, a rag, and a folding stool. The earnings added up, covering bills that did not wait for payday. Shine kept small wallets afloat. Tailoring and mending brought another layer of skill to the table. Fathers with steady hands repaired hems, took in waistbands, or patched worn knees for neighbors who could not afford new clothes. $10 or $20 a job, paid in cash or sometimes in trade, stretched every dollar further. Word spread through the block about who could fix a suit for Sunday or let out a dress for graduation. Each stitch was a quiet act of care, preserving dignity and saving money in a world where layaway lines were long and new clothes were a luxury. Tailoring kept families looking their best. Capturing milestones became another trusted hustle. Photography meant fathers invested in cameras and learned to develop film, offering services for weddings, graduations, and family portraits. $50 to $200 per event, depending on the occasion, made the cost of film and equipment worthwhile. The living room might double as a studio, with white sheets for backdrops and lamps for lighting. Photos were more than keepsakes. They marked achievements, celebrated family, and brought in income that helped pay for the next celebration. Every flash of the camera was another step toward financial stability, built on trust and skill, one customer at a time. When taxis drew invisible borders around black neighborhoods, fathers with dependable cars filled the gap. Jitney driving became a quiet network, offering rides to work, to hospitals, or to the airport for $5 or $10, sometimes $50 for an airport run. The phone rang late, especially after factory shifts, and the man with the sedan always answered. Airport trips paid a premium and word traveled fast. If you needed to get somewhere, he would get you there, no questions asked. Saturday mornings shifted gears. Flea markets turned sharp instincts into cash. Fathers combed garage sales and estate auctions, buying records, clothes, and appliances for next to nothing. Tables filled with marked-up treasures, each price calculated to move inventory and keep regulars coming back. A good day meant $100, sometimes $300, more than a week's wages at the plant. The trick was knowing what would sell and never letting a deal slip away. Insurance sales took hustle to the front porch. Black-owned firms like North Carolina Mutual and Atlanta Life offered burial and life policies when big companies shut the door. Fathers walked blocks, knocked on doors, and earned 10 to 20% commission on every premium. A steady client list meant $50 to $200 a week, and every handshake built trust. These men became fixtures in the neighborhood, offering real protection and a sense of security when few others would. Tutoring brought education home. Pride and purpose came with lessons at the kitchen table. Fathers who excelled in math or reading invited neighborhood kids to the table. Lessons ran an hour, $2 to $5 per child. Parents saw grades rise and word spread quickly. The money helped, but the pride ran deeper. Sons watched their fathers break down fractions. Daughters learned to read aloud, and every lesson built a bridge to something better. Slots filled by word of mouth, and soon every evening was spoken for. Some men carried sample cases, selling encyclopedias, vacuums, or cosmetics door to door. Commissions ranged from 10 to 30% per sale. The best sellers memorized scripts, read the room, and closed deals that brought in steady cash. Rejection was part of the job, but every yes meant another step towards stability, and every customer was a potential referral. Coaching and refereeing youth sports rounded out the week. Recreation leagues paid stipends, $20 to $50 per game, and $100 for a season. Fathers ran practices, called fouls, and kept kids off the street. The money mattered, but so did the respect. These men became mentors, teaching discipline and teamwork, building networks that lasted long after the final whistle. Each hustle relied on people skills, on trust, and on the willingness to work when others rested. Off-the-clock labor turned into real money, multiplying the value of every hour and building futures that day jobs alone could not promise. Risk and reward collided after dark, where the biggest payoffs came with higher stakes. Numbers running moved quietly through the neighborhood, a daily lottery that thrived in the shadows. Runners collected bets from porches and factory break rooms, pocketing a cut of every dollar, sometimes earning as much as $50 or $200 in a single day. The money was real, but so were the risks. Police raids swept through without warning, and arrests could end more than a side hustle. Yet, the numbers game funded mortgages, school supplies, and even small businesses, circulating cash where banks refused to lend. Music offered a different kind of hustle. Fathers with turntables and a box of records hauled gear into basements, church halls, and nightclubs. A single night behind the decks could bring in $50 to $100, more than some made all week at the plant. The investment was steep: speakers, amplifiers, crates of vinyl, all paid for out of pocket, sometimes with the very earnings from factory overtime. Late hours meant missed family dinners and long drives home after midnight, but the dance floor stayed packed, and word of mouth kept the phone ringing for the next gig. Night Janitorial work filled the hours when most of the city slept. Fathers clocked in after their day jobs, sweeping offices and scrubbing church floors for $50 to $100 a shift. The work was steady, if unglamorous, and doubled a paycheck when every dollar counted. Sacrifice was the price: fatigue, missed sleep, and time away from home. But the payoff was security, bills paid on time, savings growing in secret, and the quiet pride of providing against the odds. Passive income was not just a buzzword. It was a quiet revolution in the hands of Black fathers who found ways to make money work for them, even while they slept. Vending machine routes, for example, turned a few hours of stocking snacks and collecting coins into a steady flow of cash. One machine in a laundromat or barbershop could pull in $20 to $50 a week after costs. A route of 10 machines brought in $300 a month, enough to cover a car payment or chip away at the mortgage, all while the day job paid the bills. Room rentals transformed spare bedrooms and finished basements into reliable monthly income. In cities like Detroit and Chicago, a single room might rent for $75 to $100 a month, nearly as much as the average mortgage payment in some neighborhoods. Two boarders meant the house paid for itself, and every rent check accelerated equity, turning a home into a generational asset. Tax season brought another wave of opportunity. Fathers who mastered the IRS forms set up kitchen table offices from January through April, charging neighbors $15 to $25 per return. 50 clients in a season meant over $1,000 earned in just a few months. That money covered tuition, paid off debts, or seeded a college fund. The work was concentrated but lucrative, and the trust built with each return often lasted for years. Urban gardens and small backyard farms rounded out the portfolio. Collard greens, tomatoes, and okra sold door to door or at church could bring in $200 to $300 over a growing season. Every dollar from these low-touch hustles went into a single pot, mortgage paid down, savings stacked, college dreams funded. Sons watched as their fathers combined streams, learning that true security was not about one big score, but about stacking small wins until the future felt certain. Today, nearly half of Black workers still rely on multiple income streams, a survival skill turned generational wisdom. As gig work grows and wages stagnate, the ingenuity once forged by necessity remains vital. Every side hustle is more than a paycheck. It is a blueprint for resilience in a world that rarely plays fair. The question now is, what will we build with that legacy? Drop your thoughts below.